My friends, this is Dr. B, the best doctor in medicine. Today, Dr. B wants to explain to you why is it that this oxygen that you breathe, this beautiful oxygen that you breathe is not only a blessing, but at the same time, it is a malediction. It is a curse. It is a bane. The oxygen that we all breathe, that I breathe, that you breathe for our life, for our survival, is a blessing, right? Because we need it to live. But at the same time, it is a malediction, a curse, a bane, whichever term you want to use. You understand. Very good. Dr. B is going to explain to you quickly. I posted a video about that, but let's go quickly. Why is it that we need oxygen in the air that we breathe? Why do we need this oxygen? Have you noticed that people who are mountaineers, when they climb above a certain level, they need to carry with them oxygen, right, in little tanks on their back, and have oxygen masks. Because if they don't do that, as they go higher and higher in the mountains, the tall mountains, right, like the K2, the Everest, right, the Annapurna, when they want to climb very high, if they don't have supplemental oxygen, because as you go higher and higher, there's less concentration of oxygen in the air, they're going to faint, they're going to die, they're going to develop lung edema, brain edema, they're going to die. They need to go back, they need to be taken back quickly down and lower their altitude, right? So we need oxygen, otherwise we die, right? In the air that you breathe, there is about 21% of oxygen, right? 21%. The rest, 78% is nitrogen. Nitrogen, which is an inert gas. And about 1% of the air that we breathe is made of carbon dioxide, water vapor, pollutants, and blah, blah, blah. So 21% of the air that you breathe is made of this vital oxygen that we need, right? If the concentration drops more and more and more and more, then we faint, we develop cerebral edema, pulmonary edema, and we die, right? So why do we need oxygen? Because at the cellular level, in our tiny, tiny microscopic cells, right, there is a powerhouse that creates energy from the food that we eat. When you eat food contains chemical energy. The same way the gasoline that you put in your car contains chemical energy that can go into the cylinders of your car, explode, and make the wheels of your car spin, right? In the coal, in the charcoal that you use to warm up your home or to burn do your barbecue, in this charcoal, in the wood that you put in your chimney, the wood to warm up your home, there is chemical energy. It is exactly the same thing when you eat food. The food that you eat is full, packed with massive amount of chemical energy. As an example, in 1 gram of fat that you eat, 1 gram, there is 9 calories. Think about it. 1 gram of fat, a tiny little gram of fat like that, 9 calories of energy. It's crazy, right? So inside our body, the 37 trillion cells that we have, remember an average human body, adult, I'm saying, not children, adult, is made of about 37 trillion, not billion, not million, trillion cells, tiny microscopic building blocks that form our organs, our heart, the brain, the kidneys, the liver, the intestine, the bones, the muscles, right? They are made of tiny little building blocks, microscopic building blocks that we call cells. The same way a house is made of building blocks, tiny little building blocks that we call bricks. You take thousands of bricks, you put them together, you build a home, right? So these cells, these tiny microscopic cells, 37 trillion of them in an average human body, in each of them there are a few tiny factories, powerhouses that convert the energy from the food, the chemical energy of the food, into another form of chemical energy that we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate, ATP. The three letters of the alphabet, ATP. Without oxygen, these little powerhouses in each of these tiny little cells would not be able to convert the energy from the food, the chemical energy of the food, into this chemical energy called ATP that the cells can use in order, for instance, for the muscles to contract, for my brain to think, for my heart to contract, right? Right now, my heart is contracting, right? The muscles of my face and my larynx and my pharynx are contracting because I'm talking to you, right? My hands are gesturing. The muscles are contracting, right? They need energy to do that. The energy that they use, that the cells of our body use, is a form of energy called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which comes from the conversion of the energy from the food. So I eat food, the chemical energy of the food inside the tiny little cells in the little factories, powerhouses of my cells, that energy becomes ATP, which is another form of energy that my cells can use. The cells cannot use directly the energy of the food. They have to convert it to another form of energy called ATP, and for that, the cells, they need oxygen. Without oxygen, the tiny little powerhouses of each of my 37 trillion cells would not be able to produce that ATP energy that my brain cells, my cardiac cells, my muscle cells, my bone cells, etc. need in order to function, to do their normal physiological processes. Do you understand? So this is why we need oxygen. Let me just mention quickly, inside these tiny little microscopic cells that we have, 37 trillion in an average human body, I told you there are a few powerhouses, power factories that convert the energy from the food into this ATP energy that the cells can use. These powerhouses are called mitochondria, plural of mitochondrion. Mitochondrion, plural is mitochondria. You don't need to remember these terms. I don't want to do the biochemistry and histology and everything. This channel is to explain to you in simple terms how it works. So my average body has 37 trillion cells. In each of these tiny microscopic building blocks of my organs that we call cells, there are a few powerhouses, a few energy factories that convert the energy, the chemical energy from food into this chemical energy that the cells can use to do their function that we call ATP, so that my heart can contract, my brain can think, my fingers can move, my lungs can breathe, right? My muscles can move, blah, blah, blah. So if you do not breathe energy, if you do not breathe, I apologize, oxygen, well, those tiny little cells can no longer produce in their powerhouses, in their energy factories called mitochondria. They can no longer produce ATP. So the cells no longer have that ATP energy that they can use for my heart to contract, for my brain cells to think, to talk to you, my hands, my fingers to move, right? So the cells are going to die. That's what happens when you have a heart attack. That's what happens when you have a stroke. When you have a stroke or a heart attack, blood stops going to your brain. Oxygen stops going to your brain. Oxygen stops going to your heart, because the vessels that carry oxygen and food to your heart, to your brain, they get plugged. There you go. So suddenly you have a heart attack. So the heart muscles dies because no more oxygen. The cells cannot function without oxygen, right? The cells cannot function without that ATP. So if you don't have oxygen, you cannot produce ATP. Your cell dies because it has no energy, right? It's like a car without gasoline. It's useless. It dies. The car is dead. There's no gasoline, right? The brain, not receiving oxygen, can no longer produce this ATP from the food that you ate. The brain cells are going to die quickly, right? So now that you understand how vital and essential is oxygen for life, right? Now, why am I saying that at the same time the oxygen that you breathe is a curse? It is a bane. It is a malediction. Why do I say that? The reason is very simple. Have you heard of people telling you you need to have in your food a lot of antioxidants, right? Have you heard that? Sure, I'm sure. They tell you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables because there's a lot of antioxidants in fruits and vegetables, right? What is an antioxidant? Well, an antioxidant is a molecule, a chemical compound that is against oxidation. So an oxidant is a compound, a molecule that creates oxidation in your cells. The 37 trillion cells that you have, right? These oxidants, they're going to destroy your cells. The same way if you put a steel bar or if you put iron in the ocean, right, or the bridge. Here I live in Mountain View, California, the Golden Gate Bridge, right? If they weren't painting the bridge constantly all the time, the sea breeze, which is rich in salt and water, the iron would get rusted, right? And iron gets oxidized by the air, oxygen. Without oxygen in the air, the iron, the steel, or oxygen in the water, the steel wouldn't get oxidized, right? So when you breathe this oxygen, what happens to this oxygen where it goes into your cells? It allows your cells to produce ATP, but at the same time, and here is the malediction, this oxygen creates massive amount of oxidants, also called oxidizing agents, also called oxidizers. And these oxidants are going to attack your cells. They're going to attack your proteins, the proteins of your cells, the lipids of your membranes in the cells. They're going to attack your freaking DNA, right? So these oxygen that you breathe, which you need, otherwise you die, right? At the same time, it comes with a malediction, a curse, a bane. It goes into your cells, and at the same time, for every one of your 37 trillion cells, as an adult, of course, average adult, an average adult body has 37 trillion cells, not children, has less, obviously. For every one cell among those 37 trillion, every hour, oxygen creates, look at that, pay attention, 1 billion, not million, not thousand, 1 billion oxidants per hour. Think about that. So you breathe oxygen so that those tiny little powerhouses in your microscopic cells can convert the energy of the food into usable energy that the cells can use to do their functions, right? Called mitochondria, right? These mitochondria, these powerhouses that creates ATP, right? That this is the energy that the cells can use. This freaking oxygen, at the same time that it allows your cells to convert the chemical energy of the food into chemical energy called ATP that your cells can use, this freaking oxygen creates every hour 1 billion oxidants. Isn't that crazy, right? So that is why you are aging. That's one of the major mechanisms by which you are aging, because your stem cells get constantly, their DNA gets constantly attacked by these 1 billion oxidants that the oxygen that you breathe creates every freaking hour. I posted a video about why we age. Why is it that we age? Well, there's about 4 to 5 reasons that together play together in order to make you age. Why is it that once you reach adult age, which for women is 17 and for men is 21, why is it that once we reach adult age, we keep aging? And we go down the drain. What is the process by which we age? I posted a video about that. One of the main reasons is the oxidation, which cause of your DNA, the DNA in your beautiful stem cells that need to keep you young forever. These stem cells, their DNA, the DNA of their genes, gets constantly attacked, oxidized by these oxidants that come from the oxygen that you breathe. And even though we eat antioxidants, and even though our cells produce a very powerful antioxidant called glutathione, there are so many, just think about it, 1 billion, so many oxidants produced every hour in each of our cells that the system is overwhelmed. No matter how much antioxidants you're going to eat, and no matter how much glutathione our cells are going to produce naturally to try to fight this oxidation, a lot of our DNA gets oxidized over times, over the day, the weeks, the month, the years. It accumulates, and of course it causes DNA mutations in our stem cells, and therefore the stem cells are no longer able to generate new beautiful young cells. Our skins becomes thin, wrinkly, right? We lose our hair, our heart becomes weaker and weaker, our bones become brittle, osteoporosis, blah, 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 because our stem cells are no longer able to replace our cells on a regular basis and keep us young forever. It is because of this oxidation of the DNA in our stem cells. The oxidation of the DNA in our stem cells causes mutations of our DNA in our stem cells. These mutations of these genes in our stem cells make them dysfunctional. They die, those stem cells. And those that do not die, they become poorly functional. They are no longer able to replicate and create new, beautiful young cells to keep us young forever for the eternity. This is one of the major mechanisms, cellular mechanism, molecular mechanism by which you and me and every oxygen-breathing creature eventually gets older and dies. There are other factors that contribute, but this is the major mechanism. So this is why this oxygen that you breathe, that your life depends on, that we need, is coming with a malediction, because inside the stem cells and all your cells, it produces massive 1 billion per hour amount of oxidants, oxidizing agents, oxidizers that oxidate every molecule, every freaking molecule in your cells, destroying them. Obviously, as I said, we eat antioxidants in our diet, and our cells have evolved. Evolution has given them a mechanism of protection called glutathione. Glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant, but it's just not enough, because 1 billion oxidants per hour are produced in each and every one of your 37 trillion cells in your body. So it's just too much. It's like if there's too many rats invading my home. There is only so many rats that I can kill, right? I can get a machine gun or a flamethrower and try to kill as many rats as possible that are invading my home. But if there's 1 billion rats that are invading my home every hour, no matter how big my flamethrower or my machine gun, I'm going to be overwhelmed, and a lot of these rats are going to be able to invade and enter my home. So it's the same thing for these billions of oxidants that are produced by the oxygen that we breathe every freaking hour. 1 billion of them are produced by the oxygen in each of your 37 trillion cells. The system is overwhelmed. Over time, massive amount of damage occurs to your DNA, oxidation of your DNA, the same way that iron, a bridge that is not protected gets oxidized. The iron, the steel gets oxidized, right? Like a car that will rust if you don't protect it from the salt and the water, blah, 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 right? So the DNA gets damaged, oxidized, then it undergoes mutations. I don't want to go into the biochemical mechanism of these mutations, but you get the point. And therefore the cells, the stem cells that are replacing my skin with new cells, young cells, my hair, my digestive tract, my heart, my bone, they are no longer able to keep doing that for the eternity. And their job, of course, they become, of course, dysfunctional over time, and I age, and eventually you die. There you go. Now you understand why I am saying that this oxygen that you breathe is a blessing. We need it. We will die without it. But at the same time, it is a malediction, a curse, and a bane, because it comes with the creation of 1 billion oxidants per hour in each and every one of your 37 trillion cells. So there is nothing we can do about it. For now, science doesn't know what to do about these 1 billion oxidants that are produced every hour in each and every one of our 37 trillion cells. All we can do is slow down the pace of aging by eating a lot of antioxidants, right? And in addition, of course, to diet, exercise, blah, 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 blah. But there's no way to stop oxygen that we breathe from creating these oxidizing agents in our cells. Maybe one day in the future, science will know how to do that. But for now, there's nothing we can do about it, as long as we will need to breathe oxygen. That oxygen will create massive 1 billion per hour oxidants in our cells, which will keep oxidizing, and therefore DNA mutation in the DNA of our beautiful stem cells, which cannot keep us young and healthy for the eternity because of the mutations in their genes. I love you guys. Dr. B graduated 30 plus years ago from medical school. I took the Hippocratic Oath to always put your benefit above mine. I will never BS you, never lie to you, never give you my opinion. Everything I tell you is based on the scientific evidence and nothing but the scientific evidence, the proof. I love you regardless of your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, the color of your skin, whether you're a man, a woman, anything in between. I really love you the same way I love medicine, and I will keep doing medicine until I die at the age of 100, God willing, healthy in my bed during my sleep. And if you follow me, you can do it too. It costs $0. If you follow my recommendation, my advice is watch my video, put your comments, your questions, anything you want to ask. Watch my videos if you want to age gracefully for $0 per day. It's easy to do. It doesn't cost anything. It just requires that you follow my recommendation. It requires a little bit of willpower. I love you guys. Put your comment, your question. I will get back to you ASAP as soon as I have the time in my busy life, but I will get back to you. I love you guys, and I hope to talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.